Smoke still floated in the sky, even though the battle had ended hours ago. The ground was dark with ash and broken metal. Bodies, some human, some alien, lay still in the ruins. But inside a quiet med tent on the edge of the field, a man slowly opened his eyes. His name was Cole, a human soldier. He blinked hard, trying to remember where he was. His chest ached, his arm was bandaged, and something beeped beside his bed. He looked around, seeing the soft glow of medical lights and hearing distant voices outside the tent. He was alive, but he didn't know why. The last thing he remembered was charging into enemy fire to protect his squad, and then darkness. The flap of the tent opened, and a tall officer stepped inside. Colonel Brandt, with silver hair and cold eyes, looked down at him with a strange expression. "You saved 20 men today," the colonel said, crossing his arms. "Your name will be remembered." Cole tried to sit up, but pain shot through his side. "I just did what I had to," he replied. Voice rough from the meds, the colonel smirked. "You did more than that." Then he turned to the doorway. "Bring in the gift." Cole frowned, confused. Gift. 2 guards entered, followed by a quiet figure. She was small, slender, and alien, clearly not human. Her skin was a soft violet color, her eyes silver and glowing faintly under the lights. She wore a thin robe, and her hands were cuffed loosely. In front of her, she didn't speak, didn't look up, just stood there silently. The colonel stepped beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "This," he said proudly, "is your reward. A royal slave from the enemy's palace, taken alive during the battle. She's yours now." Cole's heart dropped. He stared at the girl. No. The woman who still kept her head down. "I didn't ask for this," he said firmly. "I don't want a slave." The colonel raised an eyebrow. "She's not a person to them anymore. She's property. And now she's yours. Take care of her. Or don't. It's up to you." Then he turned and walked out, leaving the girl standing awkwardly in the center of the room. Cole slowly sat up, pain sharp in his side. He looked at the alien girl, who still didn't move. "Hey," he said gently. "What's your name?" No answer. He stood, slowly wobbling on his feet, and stepped toward her. She flinched as he moved, her shoulders tensing like she expected a blow. "I'm not going to hurt you," Cole said softly. "I don't even know why they did this." She looked up for just a second, her eyes full of fear, sadness, and something else, shame. Cole felt something twist inside him. He hated this. She wasn't a reward, she was a prisoner. He reached for the cuffs, but she pulled her hands back. Eyes wide. "It's okay," he said again. "I'm not your owner, I swear. I'll get these off, all right?" Still, she didn't speak, just nodded slowly, almost not moving at all. Later that night, Cole sat on his cot while the alien girl sat in the corner of the tent, her knees drawn to her chest. He had given her a blanket and food, but she barely touched either. She didn't sleep, just watched the tent entrance like she expected someone to come take her away again. Cole didn't blame her. Outside, the camp was quiet. Too quiet, but then footsteps, not the normal soldier kind, fast and heavy. A shadow moved just beyond the tent wall. Cole reached for his sidearm. Heart pounding, something wasn't right. He turned to the girl. "Stay low," he whispered. Her eyes widened. She felt it too. The footsteps stopped, just outside the tent. Then a sharp whisper in a language Cole didn't understand. The girl's face went pale, her lips trembling. "Who is it?" he asked, voice low. She didn't answer, but tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Cole stood, gripping his weapon. Whoever was out there wasn't part of their unit, and they weren't here to say hello. Suddenly, the alien girl spoke her first word, barely a whisper. "They've come to take me back." Cole turned toward the tent flap, raising his weapon slowly. Not if he could help it. Not tonight. Not ever. Cole didn't sleep that night. He sat near the tent flap, gripping his weapon tightly, listening to every noise outside, but whoever had been there was gone. Vanished into the shadows without leaving a trace. The alien girl sat curled up in the corner, eyes open, watching him carefully like a frightened animal waiting to run. The silence between them was heavy, but Cole didn't try to force words anymore. He just stayed close, showing with his actions that he wouldn't harm her, wouldn't use her like a thing. When morning came, a soldier passed by and told him the higher-ups wanted to question him later. Something about missing war loot. Cole knew what it meant. They were going to ask about her, to maybe try to take her back. He had no intention of letting that happen. Not until he knew who she really was. Not until she was safe, later that day. When the camp was quiet, Cole walked over to her slowly. She didn't flinch this time, just looked up at him with tired silver eyes. "You speak my language," he said softly. "You said something last night, remember?" The girl hesitated, then gave the smallest nod. "My name is Cole," he added, pressing a hand to his chest. "Human soldier." There was a long pause before she whispered Liar. Her voice was soft and shaky, like it hadn't been used in weeks. Cole repeated her name carefully, and she blinked in surprise. "I'm not your enemy, Liari," he said gently. "I don't want to own anyone." She looked away, voice low, "But I was given. Like food, like a thing," Cole sighed. "That wasn't my choice, and it's not what I believe." He offered her a protein bar, and this time she took it with slow, unsure fingers. She nibbled the edge, then paused, looking at him like she was deciding whether to trust him or not. Then, to his surprise, she whispered, "I was a scientist." Before they broke me, those words hit him hard. Liari wasn't just some random slave girl. She had a life, a mind, a purpose. And now she was sitting here like discarded property. "Tell me more," Cole said gently. "If you want." She leaned back against the wall, eyes far away. "I worked on energy systems," she said slowly. "Before the war reached my world, I was forced to help build weapons. I refused, so they punished me. They cut off my status, my family. They gave me to the humans as a gift, something to end a negotiation." Cole clenched his fists, trying not to show his anger. "You're not a gift," he said, voice tight. "You're a survivor." Liari blinked, surprised again, as if no one had ever said that to her before. Then she leaned forward and whispered something that changed everything. "I know things about their next plan. About another war. They think I'm too broken to remember, but I do." Her voice was trembling, but steady enough to understand. Cole stared at her, heart racing. "What kind of things?" he asked. She looked at the tent flap, then back at him. "They're going to strike again. Not with soldiers, but with disease. A bioweapon hidden in food shipments. Set to release in major colonies." Cole's mouth went dry. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about millions of lives. "Why are you telling me this?" He asked, slowly. "Because," Liari whispered, "you didn't treat me like a thing. You listened. Now, I want to live. And maybe help stop this." Cole nodded, eyes serious. "We'll stop it together." But inside, he already knew this wouldn't be easy. If what she said was true, someone powerful wanted her silenced. And if they found out she told him, they'd come for both of them. Just then, a soft sound came from outside. A humming drone passed over the tent, scanning the area. Liari stiffened, pulling the blanket around her tightly. "They're watching," she whispered. "They never stop watching." Cole stepped toward the tent's edge, gun ready, mind racing. They had to move. They had to get out of this camp, and they had to do it before nightfall, because once the sun went down, someone would come. And this time, they wouldn't just be watching, they'd be taking her back, or killing them both. And Cole was not going to let that happen. Cole packed quickly. He stuffed rations, water packs, and a small first aid kit into a military bag. Liari stood by the corner of the tent, still wrapped in the blanket, watching him with wide eyes. He gave her a look that said, "Trust me." And she nodded slowly. She didn't ask questions, didn't cry. She just moved when he moved. Quiet and alert. The camp was half empty. Some soldiers were still celebrating the victory. Others were out cleaning the battlefield. Cole knew their window was small. Too many eyes during the day. Too many shadows at night. They had to leave now. He led her out the back of the medical tent, through a row of old transport crates stacked like walls. They moved quickly but carefully. Every time a voice echoed nearby. They stopped and held their breath. Liari walked close behind him, her bare feet silent on the dirt. She didn't complain, not even once. Near the edge of the camp was an old cargo skimmer, half buried in mud. It hadn't been used in weeks, but Cole had worked on it before during repairs. He opened the side hatch and climbed in, motioning for Liari to follow. "Get in, stay low," he whispered. Inside, the controls were dusty, wires exposed, but Cole's fingers moved fast. He bypassed the ignition lock and used an emergency override chip from his ID badge. The engine coughed once, then started with a low hum. Liari jumped at the sound, but stayed still. The skimmer lifted slightly, floating off the ground. Cole looked at the empty path ahead, the western side of the jungle. It's unmonitored, but wild. It was dangerous, but safer than staying here. He took a breath, then gunned the engine. They slipped past the last patrol drone just before it turned its scanner in their direction. Cole didn't speak, eyes focused on the rough path ahead. Liari sat beside him, gripping the edge of the seat, silent but shaking after 2 hours of travel. The skimmer began to lose power. Smoke rose from the rear panel, and warning lights flashed red. Cole cursed under his breath, guiding the skimmer down to a slow landing. They were still in the wild zone, thick trees, no roads and no signal. He pulled out a toolkit and got to work. But it was no good. The drive coil was burnt out. "We can't go any further by skimmer," he said. "We'll have to walk." Liari stepped out slowly, the forest floor soft under her feet. She looked around nervously. "This place. It's not safe, I know," Cole replied, scanning the trees with his rifle ready. "But it's better than being hunted by the people behind us." They walked until nightfall. Pushing deeper into the jungle, strange sounds echoed from the trees, clicks, growls, rustling branches. Once or twice, Liari stopped suddenly, staring into the dark like she saw something he didn't. Cole didn't question her instincts. She had lived on this planet longer than him. Finally, they found a cave under a rock shelf, hidden and dry. Cole built a small fire. Carefully shielding the smoke, Liari sat close to the flames, her hands shaking from cold and fear. But still, she didn't cry. Cole passed her a ration bar, and she took it with a nod. They ate in silence. Later, Cole checked the radio. No signal, just static. He knew they were truly off-grid now, and that meant no help, no backup, no rescue. Only them, as the fire crackled softly. Liari finally spoke, her voice barely louder. Then a whisper, "You could have left me." Cole looked at her, surprised. "You didn't have to run with me," she added. "They'll punish you too." He stared into the fire for a moment before answering. "Yeah, they probably will," he said. "But I'd rather be punished than be the kind of man who lets a scared girl get dragged back into chains." Liari looked at him for a long moment. Something changing in her expression. Not fear, not doubt, but something like respect. She pulled her blanket tighter and leaned her head gently against the cave wall for the first time since they met. She let her eyes close, just a little. Cole stayed awake, holding his rifle close. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew they had crossed a line tonight. They were no longer just soldier and alien girl, they were fugitives, hunted together. And the night wasn't over yet, not even close. The cave was quiet, except for the crackling fire and distant sounds of the jungle. Cole sat with his back against the cold stone wall. Watching Liari sleep for the first time since he met her, her face looked softer now, less guarded, like she had finally let herself believe she was safe, even if just for one night he didn't sleep. He kept his rifle ready, eyes half closed, but ears alert. The jungle was alive, and not everything in it was friendly. But the most dangerous thing wasn't out there, was the people hunting them. The ones who didn't want Liari to speak. By morning, the fire had burned low. A coo and fog rolled through the trees like a ghost. Liari woke up slowly, blinking at the mist outside the cave. She pulled the blanket around her shoulders and looked at Cole. "You stayed awake all night?" she whispered. "Someone had to," he said with a small smile. "I don't snore anyway." Her lips twitched like she wanted to smile too. But instead, she said, "Thank you." He nodded, then stood and stretched. "His sore muscles will need to move again soon," he said. "They won't stop looking, but where will we go?" She asked, her voice small. "We have no transport, no signal, no alleys." Cole thought for a moment, then pointed toward the mountains in the far distance. "There's a relay tower on the ridge. Old, but it might still work if we can reach it. I can send a secure burst transmission to someone I trust." The journey through the jungle was hard. Mud, vines, insect swarms, and strange alien creatures slowed them down. Liar moved quietly, sometimes warning Cole to stop when she sensed danger he couldn't see. He began to trust her instincts more than his training. At one point, they crossed a shallow river. Cole offered her his hand, but she hesitated, not because of pride, but because of fear. He waited patiently, hands still out. After a few seconds, she placed her fingers in his, and he helped her across. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. That night, they made camp under the roots of a giant tree. Hidden from view, they shared food again, and Liari spoke more this time. She told him about her life before the war, her research, her people, her dreams. She had once wanted to create technology that healed instead of destroyed. Cole listened without interrupting, letting her speak freely for the first time in years. When she finished, she looked down and said, "I used to believe we were better than humans. More advanced, but in the end, my own people threw me away." Cole didn't know what to say. So he just looked at her and said, "You're still standing. That means they didn't win." She looked at him quietly, then said, "Why do you care? You could have taken the reward, accepted your praise, gone home." He took a breath and said, "Because I've seen what war does, and I'm tired of pretending we're the good guys all the time. Because when I looked at you, I didn't see an alien, I saw someone broken, like me, and maybe," he added, voice low, "saving you helps me believe I can still be human too." There was silence after that, heavy, but not uncomfortable. Liari scooted closer to the fire. Then, to him, sitting beside him, shoulder touching his. She didn't say anything, but she didn't move away either. As they sat under the stars, a distant hum passed above the jungle. A black drone flew across the sky, its scanners glowing blue. Cole and Liari both froze eyes. Tracking its movement, it didn't stop, didn't turn, but they knew it had seen the heat signature. Time was running out. They had maybe one day, maybe less. Before the hunters caught up, Cole looked at Liari and said, "We leave at dawn." She nodded once, eyes full of quiet fire. She was done being silent, done being hunted. Together, they would reach the tower. Together, they would tell the truth. And together, they would face whatever came next. The sun had barely touched the sky when Cole and Liari began moving again. They stayed off the paths, cutting through brush, mud, and thick jungle thorns. Cole's legs burned, and his uniform was soaked with sweat, but he didn't stop. Liari walked behind him, silent but determined, her eyes always scanning the trees. They were close to the edge of the wild zone now, close to the old neutral trade city built between human and alien borders. A place where names didn't matter, only money did. As they stepped onto a cracked concrete road, Cole lowered his rifle. "From here, we blend in," he said. Breathing hard, Liari nodded. Though she was clearly nervous, the city in the distance looked dead gray towers, rusted domes, and scattered lights. But Cole knew people still lived there. People who didn't ask questions. He hoped one of them would help. They entered the city just before noon, passing through a broken security gate. No soldiers, no scanners. Just locals and traders with tired eyes. Cole pulled up his hood, hiding his face, and handed Liari an old cloth to cover hers. They moved fast, avoiding cameras and patrol routes. He knew someone in this city, an old war medic named Bren. If anyone could offer shelter, it was him. They reached Bren's shop-hand old junk store with a blinking red sign. Cole knocked twice, paused, then knocked once again. The door creaked open, and a bearded man in dusty armor stepped out. "Cole?" he said with disbelief. "You're supposed to be dead." "Not yet," Cole said, pushing inside. "I need help." Fast. Bren looked at Liari, raising an eyebrow, but didn't ask. He locked the door behind them and led them to a back room. "Filled with supplies, you look like hell," Bren muttered, tossing him a canteen. Cole drank quickly and said, "I need a safe signal boost." Bren frowned. "For what?" "To send something important," Cole replied. "To someone who still believes in truth." Bren stared at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, I'll set it up." But only one burst. He moved toward the console while Cole handed him the encrypted data chip Liari had hidden inside her robes. She sat quietly, watching every move with sharp eyes. Bren inserted the chip, glanced at the code, and froze. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. Cole didn't answer. Bren turned to Liari, his face pale. You're her, aren't you?" She didn't reply, but that was answer enough. Bren's hands trembled slightly. "You're being hunted. Hard." Cole stepped forward. "Just send the message." Bren nodded and began typing quickly. The message? Sent, and Cole finally let out a breath, but before they could celebrate, there was a loud crash outside the building. Someone kicked the door open, and heavy boots stomped in. Soldiers, not just any soldiers, but elite black armor enforcers. "How did they find us so fast?" Cole muttered, grabbing Liari's hand. Bren's eyes widened. I didn't tell anyone," he stammered, but it was too late. Flash grenades burst into the room, white light blinding them. Cole pulled Liari behind a metal crate, firing blindly. But the soldiers rushed in too fast, too many, too trained. He was struck in the back with a stun rod, collapsing to the floor with a grunt. Liari screamed as arms grabbed her and dragged her away. Cole tried to rise, but his limbs wouldn't move. Through blurred vision, he saw her silver eyes staring back at him as she disappeared out the door. The world tilted, then went black. When Cole woke, he was in chains, cold metal around his wrists. He was inside a holding cell, alone. The walls were smooth steel, the lights harsh and white. No windows, no sound but his own heartbeat. He didn't know where they had taken Liari, but he knew what they planned. They were going to erase her, silence her, pretend she never existed, all because she carried the truth. And now Cole was labeled a traitor. He leaned his head back against the wall, breathing slow. This wasn't the end. Not yet. He had sent the message, and someone out there had received it. There was still hope. But first, he had to get out, and he had to find her, no matter what it cost. Cole sat in silence, his hands cuffed to the table. The room was cold and empty, except for a single light hanging above him. His uniform was torn, his face bruised, but his eyes were clear. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was angry. They had taken Liari, locked him away, and labeled him a traitor. But they didn't know one thing: he had already delivered the truth. And now they were running out of time. The door opened, and 2 officers stepped inside, followed by a judge in a gray robe. No crowd, no defense team, just a quiet trial in a hidden room. "This is a formal court inquiry," the judge said without emotion. "You, Private Cole Anders, are charged with theft of military property, aiding the enemy, and spreading false information." Cole looked up slowly. "She's not property," he said, voice steady. "She's a person, and you all know it. Do not speak unless asked," the officer snapped. But Cole leaned forward, voice rising. "You gave me a living being and called it a reward. She was a scientist, a citizen, and you threw her away like trash." The judge ignored him and continued reading charges. They didn't care about the truth. They only cared about burying it. But Cole wouldn't let them. He stood up suddenly, knocking the chair over. "You can chain me, beat me, even kill me," he shouted. "But you can't erase her. She remembers everything: your plan, your weapon, your lies." Suddenly, a screen on the wall blinked to life. A loud buzz echoed in the room as red symbols flashed across the display. One of the officers turned pale. "What is that?" "It's a data breach," the other whispered. "Someone activated the message." Cole smiled through bleeding lips. "She got it out," he said, "and someone believed her." The screen showed a video of Liari's face, calm but fierce. Speaking clearly in human language, she explained the plan to use modified food shipments as a weapon, the secret labs, the names of those involved. The judge froze. The officers looked at each other in panic. "This isn't possible," one muttered. "It's public," the other said, voice shaking. "The whole network is seeing it now." Cole's cuffs were still locked, but his voice was strong. "You kept her in chains because you feared her truth," he said. "Now the galaxy hears it." The judge slammed a fist on the desk. "This court is dismissed," but it was too late. Outside, alarms began to blare. Screams and rushing footsteps echoed from the hallway. Someone had attacked the base. Gunfire erupted from down the corridor. Cole ducked low, the lights above flickering with each explosion. Then the door burst open. A smoke grenade rolled in, filling the room with thick gray clouds. Through the fog, a tall figure appeared, wearing scavenged armor and holding a plasma pistol. It was Brenda, old medic, his face covered with a scarf. He moved fast, shot both officers with stun rounds, and rushed to Cole. "Told you I still owed you," he muttered, unlocking the cuffs. Cole fell to his knees, then stood with a grunt. "Where is she?" he asked, coughing through the smoke. "They moved her to the underground transport dock." Bren replied, "We have minutes." Cole grabbed a dropped weapon and followed him into the chaos. Soldiers were shouting, running, some shooting blindly into the smoke, but Cole had one goal in his mind: get to Liari. He sprinted down the lower halls, memories flashing with each step. The cold cave, her whisper, her trembling hands, her silver eyes full of quiet hope. They reached the transport dock just as the engines roared to life. A ship was preparing to leave. Inside, through a small window, Cole saw her. She was sitting quietly, hands bound, guarded by 2 armed men. Cole raised his weapon, aimed, and fired. One guard dropped instantly. The other ducked and fired back, missing. Bren covered him, laying down heavy fire. As Cole rushed forward, he slammed a fist on the hatch, opened it, and stepped inside. Liari looked up in shock, her eyes wide. He shot the last guard and rushed to her, unlocking her cuffs without saying a word. When she was free, she didn't move, just stared at him, shaking. "You came back?" she whispered. "Of course I did," Cole said, breathless. "I promised. remember?" She stared at him, then did something he didn't expect. She leaned forward and hugged him tightly, her arms clinging to him like he was the only safe place left in the galaxy. He held her back, quietly, strongly, like the world was burning around them, but they were still standing. Behind them, sirens howled louder. The building was falling apart, and the ship engines were starting to overload. Bren shouted from outside, "You've got seconds. Move." Cole grabbed Liari's hand, and together, they ran. The engines roared behind them, shaking the metal floor as Cole and Liari ran toward the exit. Bren waved them forward from the loading ramp of a stolen shuttle, his weapon still smoking. "Let's go," he shouted. "This place is about to blow." Cole helped Liari up the ramp, and Bren slammed the hatch shut just as a wave of heat burst through the corridor behind them. The shuttle's systems came online. Thrusters igniting with a sharp roar, Cole jumped into the pilot seat, fingers dancing across the controls. Liari sat beside him, strapping in with shaky hands. Her silver eyes never left him, not even once. "Hold tight," Cole muttered, pulling back on the controls. The shuttle lifted off just as the base below exploded in a tower of fire and dust. Smoke filled the air, but they broke through it, rising into the sky. Liari closed her eyes and let out a breath she'd been holding for too long. They flew in. Silence for a while, heading into open airspace. The signal from the data burst had already reached the outer colonies. People were talking, asking questions, demanding truth. The names Liari exposed were being investigated, and for the first time in years, change had begun. They stopped on a quiet moon colony far from the front lines. Bren went his own way after giving Cole one last smirk and a slap on the shoulder. "Don't get yourself killed," he said. "She's not just anyone." Then he was gone. Cole and Liari found a small house near a crystal lake, surrounded by trees and silence. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. Liari spent the first few nights waking up from nightmares, gasping for breath. Cole was always there, sitting nearby, watching the stars outside the window. He didn't speak unless she did, but she always found comfort in his presence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, she sat beside him on the wooden steps of the porch. Her silver eyes were soft, calm for the first time in a long while. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Regret what?" He replied, "Leaving everything behind for me." Cole looked up at the fading sky, then back at her. "I didn't leave everything," he said. "I found something better." She tilted her head, curious. "You," he whispered. "You're not a reward, Liari. You're a second chance." She didn't reply with words. Instead, she reached for his hand and held it in hers. Warm, gentle, no fear left, only trust. And something deeper, growing slowly between them, in time. People began to visit the moon colony. Some brought questions, others brought thanks. Liari spoke at councils, told her story, not as a victim, but as a witness. Cole stood beside her, always silent, always steady. Together, they became a symbol not of war, but of peace, earned the hard way. One day, a little alien girl from a nearby village approached Liari and asked, "Were you really a slave?" Liari knelt down and smiled gently. "Once." "Yes," she said, "but not anymore." The girl looked at Cole and asked, "Is he the one who saved you?" Liari looked at him, then back at the child. "No," she said with a soft laugh. "We saved each other." And that was the truth. Because sometimes, these strongest people aren't the ones who fight with guns. They're the ones who choose mercy over power. The ones who listen instead of command. The ones who reach out a hand not to control, but to lift someone up in a galaxy built on rules and borders. A human soldier and a broken alien girl had rewritten everything. Not with force, but with hope. And they weren't done yet.